Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this very large winter storm or blizzard that will be occurring across the northeastern United States. Now, this thing is obviously a monster. You've probably heard a lot about it in the news. It has had a lot of difficulty in terms of tracking it, or we've had a lot of difficulty in terms of exactly pinpointing whether or not these snowfall totals will be heavy for the coastal areas, whether or not it will be a bit off the coast, leaving impacts rather limited, or will it move a bit inland. And now I don't want to say that since yesterday when we had all of those questions, a lot of them have been resolved, and it looks we're pretty confident in a track of the storm. And I'll be going over many metropolitan areas across the eastern seaboard that could be impacted by this beast. We are on the eve of this system, as this thing will be starting to take shape at around this time frame tomorrow. And by the time it's Saturday late in the afternoon, when I'm recording this, kind of 6 p.m., but in 48 hours, this system will be a full-fledged underway. So not that much time. If you haven't prepared yet, I advise you do. This isn't anything you should, be absolutely scared of, but just the regulars. Obviously, having the shovels ready. Maybe you haven't used them yet this year in certain areas. Having those ready, taken out. Obviously, having a few extra supplies. If you go out, be careful with your car. Have some kitty litter with you or whatnot. So if your car gets stuck, you can use a little bit of that to get unstuck. Because this thing really it's a powerful beast. We haven't had one of these systems across the eastern seaboard in a while. Before we get started, I do want to say that if you guys are new to this channel, hello and welcome. Check out the channel. Obviously, watch through the entirety of the video. See if this is something you would like. I'm a weather enthusiast, a hobbyist. I'm not an official weather forecaster. Obviously, for official info, go to the National Weather Service. Yeah, I'm saying this at the beginning of the video because at the end I always forget. So if you would like to support this, you can do so by liking and subscribing. Otherwise, leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer it. I usually answer most comments. All right, let's start talking about this because we have really a lot of stuff to go over, and this truly can be a historic event. And again, we are very close to it occurring. So do note that we do have a whole plethora of winter weather advisories, watches, warnings in association with this system. Notice that it's not far inland. It's really just scraping the eastern seaboard, right? And so that may not seem like it's too impactful, but these areas have some of the biggest cities in the United States, and unfortunately, it seems they will be getting the brunt of this system, and not just snow, but wind, extreme winds, large waves for the extreme coastal areas. I do want to click on a bit inland. Do note that there are winter storm warnings for the Appalachian Mountains. Now, for cities like Asheville, there could be a bit of freezing rain mix. You can see right there, just rain snow mix. But mainly, I would say that it's mainly a snow threat, and you can see that they don't really have any snow forecasted that's significant, but 1 to 2 inches up to 3. So again, just an advisory for these areas. But where we see the warning, obviously, there could be a bit more of that snowfall. You could see up to an inch right there. 1 to 3 Friday nights, around 2 to 5, 2 to 6 inches, which is a pretty significant event. Again, nothing extreme for those areas. Where it gets really extreme is here. So let me start off by looking at New Jersey, and yes, this is the Philadelphia office. So if you live in the city of Philadelphia, you're under a watch, and your city, since you're away a bit from the coast, it's pretty tricky. A couple days ago, it really seemed like you may not really get anything out of this system because it was taking more of a coastal track. However, now, with the last few updates, really since yesterday, it has shifted a bit towards the west, this system, or at least it's become more clear that it will take a westward scenario. And what that means is you could expect anywhere from 5 to 8 inches across Philadelphia. Again, this may seem just like a regular 5 to 8 inch event, and to an extent it will be. However, the temperatures will be cold and the winds will be strong, so that is definitely something you want to be prepared for. I do believe this is the biggest event of the season thus far for those areas, Philadelphia especially, because you haven't had that many. I may be mistaken, but 5 to 8 events isn't anything you haven't seen before, but it is a decent snowstorm. Do notice that Richmond, for example, you have around 3 inches. So again, that's not historic or legendary, but look, as you get towards the portion of Maryland, this little Chesapeake Bay, I think that's what it's called. I guess the what eastward side of it, you could see the mounts really, really crank up. And Salisbury, we have 8 to 12 inches, so that's already quite a big of a jump. Do note that they extend all the way into North Carolina, so those definitely will be, those folks will be dealing with some heavy snow. Let's take a look at New York City. I just want to go over the big cities, and then I'll go into the details of this system. You can see 10 to 15 inches of snow likely. Do note that is a very big range of snow. 10 inches, 15 inches, that's a pretty big difference. Regardless if you get 10 or 15, it's a massive event, so it is nothing, I guess, really to be paying attention to details for. But do note that areas in extreme eastern Long Island, right, you could be getting up to 16, maybe even a foot and a half is not out of the question. But New York City itself, maybe around 6, 7, 8 inches, so still a big event, right? Just not a massive one like potentially out here. Regardless, this is something that you'll have to watch for, this cutoff line. This may be a bit further inland or further towards the coast, depending on the exact track of the system. It may kind of wobble around and not really produce a exact track that the National Weather Service currently has forecasted, though they're doing their best with these amounts. Do note that probably the hardest hit area is these 3 states right here. We have Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I will show you Maine in just a second, but notice that Boston could see anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. Cape Cod, Nantucket might actually get a bit less because of some rain mixing in. But do note that we could see anywhere from 18 to 24 inches of snowfall across Cape Cod and portions of eastern Boston. So yes, this is a massive event. I would say the biggest one you've had in probably a few years. I don't know if last year you saw such a big event. I know New York City got a big snowstorm last year. I don't know if Boston did. Regardless, if you did or didn't, these systems are, powerful, and this one in particular has very strong winds associated with it. So if I take a look at Boston, again, I'm just going to click on this. You can see Friday night is when it starts. Again, this timing may be a bit early, a bit later, depending on the exact evolution of the system. But look, 9 to 13 inches Saturday night, 2 to 4, and these winds will be howling very, very fast, 46 miles per hour. These drifts will be significant, and that's definitely something to watch for. Do note that we do have winter storm watches all the way into New Hampshire, Vermont, actually not Vermont, but New Hampshire and Maine. And I don't know if there's an exact snowfall outlook with the map, but basically probability of greater than 8 inches, and you can see some of these areas are close to 100, and 8 inches is a lot. So obviously the further inland, the lesser amounts. You can still see some decent amounts here, just not as significant. And you can see, let's click on Portland. I'm assuming you'll be seeing very heavy snow. I don't know what exactly the National Weather Service predicts, but 3 to 7, and probably a bit more on Sunday. So up to again, well over foot and a half of snowfall. Now, let me go to the model view, because this is a very, very good tool that I like to look at. And basically has a National Weather Service forecast for this winter storm in a layout of kind of almost like a weather model. So it's very convenient, and it's updated every hour. So I don't have to kind of look at different cities constantly showing you which one. I guess I did it because there's only that many areas impacted by it, and it's actually pretty convenient. I kind of wanted to talk about it, but if I wanted to show you a large area and how much snow they're predicting, I could have just showed you this from the beginning. But I think it's still nice that I showed you. I think it's still nice when I show you a bit of that. Kind of city by city exact analysis, because here it's a bit further out, zoomed out, but you can see this is what they currently think will be happening. Again, this is updated. If I were to show you, I meant to say updated pretty frequently. So let's go to like 6 hours ago. You can see that they were obviously showing snow, but there are definitely some areas that have been changed. I don't know particularly what. Yeah, I think they definitely increased some of these amounts here up towards Delaware and New Jersey. Do note how there's an abrupt cutoff right there from like a foot to 8 inches. That's certain offices that have updated versus certain ones that haven't, which is why there's sometimes such a big kind of disparity between them. This will definitely be probably close to a foot here in southern Maryland and into portions of southern Delaware, maybe even extending into portions of Virginia, close to a foot of snow. This is constantly getting updated. Do note, even areas like Vermont, western Massachusetts could pick up a few inches, nothing significant. It really does increase drastically, especially Cape Cod, Nantucket. This might be a system, the biggest one you've had in a long, long time. And again, some of these still may be a bit conservative, as this system still around 36, 40 hours out, especially for these areas. So, yes, this thing most definitely is a massive, massive system. And by the base of the snowfall totals, you can tell it's a big storm. But when you look at this thing in terms of its layout on a meteorological map, the analysis of it, I mean, it's a storm of it's almost like a perfect storm in terms of a nor'easter, and it's just so almost satisfying to look at. So again, if you recall, the GFS yesterday was the one that had it most eastward. It's the one that took it away from the coast towards for the biggest extent, and it really is reluctant still even now to bring it towards the coast, while the European model yesterday was closer towards the coast, and I said that one's probably more accurate because its ensembles were more in agreement and they were more consistent with that, while the GFS was a bit more jumpy. And that seems to have been the case, that the Europeans did in fact end up being kind of the European models, that is, ended up being kind of the more accurate family this time around. And I did think that yesterday, but I wasn't too sure. And it would have been honestly a pain if the GFS were correct, because then people would have been warned about the system, and then what would have just kind of gone away, would have really kind of eroded a lot of credibility from the National Weather Service and obviously myself. But again, I was pretty confident that this thing is not going to just take a track off the coast, and that seems to have happened. So again, the GFS probably still the most eastward scenario out of all the models. Regardless, it's a lot more closer inland than yesterday. You can see it shows a lot of snow. Millibars are 976. The pressure that is extremely low. 966 by Sunday or late Saturday. This is a bomb cyclone, a classic example. You may hear that term getting tossed around. It's basically, it's not a bomb that's a cyclone, even though that sounds like it. It's a cyclone or a winter storm, a low pressure that has intensified, I think, 24 millibars in 24 hours, so it's a millibar per hour. And this thing, will definitely cross that criteria. It's pretty much bombing out, right? It's getting super intense, think of it in that way. And then notice that this thing does skedaddle out of here by Sunday, really by noon. It's gone. Right, so let's take a look at the total snowfall according to the GFS. You could still see the most conservative, the most limited to the coastal areas, and probably not an accurate scenario. Therefore, I don't want to spend too much time on this model. A more accurate one is the Canadian. This is definitely probability, and let's zoom in onto the United States, because this is, or onto the northeastern United States, since this is where we're focusing on. So let's take a look at how the Canadian shows much more snow compared to the GFS. What are the differences? So there's our little cold front, and the moisture from the south is available. It starts forming that snow and rain. You can see right there. I should probably open up just the eastern United States so we have a good view. So notice that tomorrow, 6 p.m., it's snowing across Virginia, Kentucky, potentially, Tennessee. Just a few, inches or even a few tenths of an inch could cause a big hassle on the road. So don't be surprised if you see decent snow across Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, decent clips. It probably won't be a massive event, but it is going to be part of a massive, bigger storm. And obviously, that's this beast. And notice this one hooks further towards the north. So by 6 a.m. Saturday, it's much more closer and stronger by land than what the GFS shows. And do note earlier how I said that Nantucket may, extreme island right there. We're off of Massachusetts, maybe a bit have a bit of a rain mixed in, which is why those snowfall amounts may be a bit smaller. But the winds will be just howling. And because of how strong this is and how close this is to the coast, the problem with this is that there could be quite a bit of lakeshore flooding. Or not lakeshore, sorry, coastal flooding, ocean flooding. I say lakeshore because every time you get an advisory for flooding, it's a lakeshore because it's off the lake. But yes, this is a coastal flood advisories. I don't know if any are posted. I would assume if they're not, they will be soon. And yes, this thing 967, just a monster. It is a very significant system, and obviously the Canadian keeps it around for quite a bit longer and stronger, closer to the coast, which is why those amounts are stronger or a lot higher. And you can see by 12 p.m. Saturday, this is 6 p.m. So towards the afternoon, it's already kind of leaving areas of Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Jersey, North Carolina, right, by Saturday. And then Saturday late at night, or evening, I should say. And then by the time midnight comes, it's really moving out of Boston. It's moving pretty much out of Maine by 6 a.m. Still, obviously, the most extreme northeastern portions are seeing that snow. And then it's gone. And by then, the snowfall footprint is rather impressive, much more than impressive than what the GFS shows. Again, tight cutoff for some of these large cities here, Philadelphia included. And, this is what the most latest Canadian model shows. Yesterday at midnight, this is what it showed. So it showed a bit more from New York City. It showed around a foot. this time, not as much. And again, this is assuming a 10-to-1 liquid ratio, which some of these amounts will be falling at, or the snow will be falling at a higher ratio. So what that means is 7 probably is a bit too low for some of these areas, assuming the Canadian puts a correct amount of precipitation there. So for that, I like to look at the pivotal weather because we can put on the Kuchera overlay. Again, same model. This is the Canadian. I won't be showing you the GFS because I just don't think it has a good handle on it. And, ever since yesterday's blunder, I don't think it's good for the rest of the storm system. But notice, I just showed you the Canadian here, right? But look how much of a difference this does. So this one tops it out around 19 inches. Kuchera, assuming accurate snowfall amounts, shows in some areas almost close to 30 inches, which isn't out of the question. And you can see New York City close to a foot. Again, 10 to 15 inches, a very good estimate for those areas by the National Weather Service. How far this goes, into Virginia, into Maryland, these 6-inch amounts, it's tough to tell. But you could see, these areas in this pink and purple, it's pretty much confident. The forecast that you guys will be seeing, 6 inches plus. That won't probably change by that much of a margin. European model, the true champion of this system, the forecasting one, did a very good job. I mean, the Canadian actually did a very good job as well, so I can't discredit that. We can only look at the 10-to-1 ratio, but that's whatever. You could see that the European, what it does, look what's here, that's interesting. It shows a little bit more of that snow into Virginia, but it's a bit less towards the north and west. So it's further extended, but a bit further off the coast. Will that happen again? This is just one model run from the European. It's been the most accurate, but it definitely still has a bit of wiggle room back and forth. And this was the one at noon, and you could see it showed a lot for Boston, even assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, a lot for Cape Cod, a lot for Nantucket, because a bit further off the coast, this thing means no rain for Nantucket. A bit closer, that means a bit of rain gets pulled in. And actually, this was the European model at noon, right? And we could take a look at the European model, the evening run. There is a thing like that. I think it was a few years ago that this started becoming a kind of a feature of the European, and we could see its evening model run. It goes out to only 90 hours, so it's specifically made for like short-term events. And you could see that compared to the noon one, let's track this out fully. Let's run this through. There aren't that many changes. What it did basically do is I think it just moved the track a bit towards the west with its most recent run. Yeah, you can see there are slightly bigger amounts into western Massachusetts compared to the other one. Shows equally heavy amounts across Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and into southern New Jersey and Delaware as to do with this model. Maybe a bit more into New York City with the most recent model. So again, expect around 7 inches of snow with this. So a very, very strong, significant event. And notice, yeah, this thing really just, I mean, it's a monster. And even for Southern Canada, folks watching here, if you're in this area, you could get just hammered by this. And I do want to say that, cities like Quebec, you won't see a massive snowstorm out of this, but you could pick up a few inches. Now, I will show you the the ensembles, but it's not individual ones. I'll just show you the EPS. So these are like 50 combined into one image, shows the average, the mean. And notice, let's just look at the last few slides. So yesterday's video, this is what the models were showing. It's telling us loading, please wait. So I guess we'll have to wait, but it's not loading, whatever. So come on, this is taking a while. This is what it showed yesterday at midnight, the weather ensembles from the European family. Notice, showed a big system, obviously, right? But the thing I want you guys to look at, whoa, it's glitching. Come on, what is going on here? It's just, I think it's really just being very slow. But notice, this is what it showed yesterday, and I'm going to put on the one that came out as of recently. You can see there hasn't been much change. It showed a bit less into portions of northern Maine, relatively pretty similar with the track. Compared to the GEFS families, again, this one didn't do as good of a job with forecasting the system. It's the one that kept showing the system just hitting Maine. And again, at this point, that seems unlikely, if not very unlikely. So this is what it showed today at 6 o'clock in the morning. The average of all the models, you could see barely clipping the northeast, and by today in the evening they have moved it gradually towards the west, west, but still not as much as I think it actually will be. So again, I'm kind of discrediting these models quite significantly. We can start looking at some of the high range models, guys, or not high range, high res models, and these are basically models like the NAM. And do note that this is the NAM that came out today in the evening. Again, the NAM hasn't done a splendid job at this system. I think it shows a bit too much snow across North Carolina, not enough into portions of New Jersey, northern New Jersey. and I would say it does a pretty good job at these areas. But the main reason I'm discrediting the NAM model is because of the fact that yesterday in the evening, this is what it showed. If you recall in yesterday's video, NAM completely showed the system missing the United States. And then a few hours after I recorded the video, this is what it showed. It brought that whole system back on. So a lot of inconsistency, a lot of jumping around. I don't like this model with this particular storm, so I will be ignoring it. The high-res model FV3, you can see it does a pretty poor job as well, showing it just clipping the coast. I don't think that's too accurate. The RGM high-res Canadian, this one did a very good job at the system, as did the operational Canadian. So we could track this out for you and just show you what this model shows. You can see there's that little bit of light snow across Pennsylvania, Ohio, maybe Kentucky tomorrow. But again, the main event starting late tomorrow, continuing through Saturday, and you can see this thing spins off. And yeah, I mean, it's a beast. It's a monster. And hold on, did you guys see that right there? I think there was like 2 low pressures, so like it handed off. So there's the original one. It goes off, and then there's a secondary one that kind of develops. Yeah, so this thing could definitely have a lot of interesting features. In terms of total snowfall, according to this one, I think you saw a glimpse of it. It shows quite a bit, assuming a 10-1, which this will be a bit fluffier than that. Let's take a look at HRDPS, a very high res. It only goes out to 48 hours, and you can see it does show decently what the in agreement with the other models show. I think it will be more snow into Maine, though. This one takes it further off the coast. A bit too quick, I think. So I'm not too. I don't think I like that model's outlook too much. Let's take a look at her model. The most recent run goes out at 18Z, so it's a either the evening run, and it's a very high res model. It goes out not far out, but it kind of sacrifices that longevity of itself for its accuracy. And do note that there's that little bit of snow developing, starting to snow. This one has snow even evolving into New York by tomorrow in midday. Light, it definitely won't be heavy, as this system's pretty much unorganized as ever at 4 p.m. But look, just look at this evolution of the system. It's exploding with precipitation. Lots of snow. I think it's underdoing some of the snow into potentially Kentucky and Tennessee, this HER model. And then look, boom, it erupts right there. Again, this HER model, as I said, it's supposed to be a very accurate one, and honestly, a lot of times it isn't. And I think that in this case scenario, based on what a lot of the models are showing, the other ones, it's just a bit too far off the coast. Notice it's barely clipping New York and Philadelphia, and that's why I think that this model, and trust me, by tomorrow evening, this thing will be closer to the shore than what the model is showing right here. Maybe even in a few model runs. And you can see right there, it's just, I think that's a bit too far off the coast. So yeah, those are basically the main high-res models I wanted to show you. I will show you the RAP actually, because that's another good one I like to look at. And it has more recent model data, which is only 2 hours old. And you can see this is a more plausible scenario, though I do think that New York City will be getting in a bit more snowfall. But again, that's just my prediction. I think that this track is a bit still off towards the east a bit more, and I think it's kind of the GFS models. I had quite a bit of influence on that. Those models, I mean, they really are showing a lot of this just off the coast, and it's just not looking like that's going to be occurring, not in their favor. UK model, it goes out to 144 hours again. It did a pretty poor job at this system. Yesterday it showed it off the coast. Today it's barely clipping the northeast. I don't think that's going to be the case. And one more model that I could show you is the Icon, but yesterday this one also showed it off the coast. And yeah, today it also has it mainly off the coast, which I don't think will happen. We'll be a bit further inland. So again, I think that the National Weather Service forecast that they have for the snowfall, if I were to go back to this, NWS, and a DFD, and take a look at the Northeast. I already showed you this, but I'll show you it again as I wrap up this video. I think that's a very, very reasonable forecast, and again, this will be adjusted. So in order to see the most recent updates, if you don't have this website, which is weathermodels.com, you do have to pay for it. Just go to the National Weather Service, type in weather.gov. It's the best resource. I always advertise it because it is, I mean, it's the best resource you can get. And again, this thing is a changing situation, but it could be a potentially historic system for the Northeast. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.